Good morning, folks. All you guys says, Joe, how come you're always so angry? How come you're always discussing about the racial issue? Well, because it is true what is going on. A lot of you guys choose to ignore it. I don't, because I've lived it. I've seen the situation where I used to see the Klan marchers marching down south. I've been on construction job all across North America where they only used to be less than about 1% of people were black. Now there's maybe 5% at the most. In Canada and the US. In Canada, just as bad as the southern United States, where people used to write things in the washrooms about coon, you black baboon, 40 kids you had, none of them ever called you dad. What's the difference between a nigger and snow tires? If you put chains on a snow tire, it doesn't sing. On the nigger, it does, referring to me, calling me Nigger Joe. I understand what it's all about. A lot of you millennials were shielded. Nobody, your parents were scared to tell you that because they're a bunch of cowards. I understand. I'm getting less rough around the edges. Been going to the worship center, Kansas City. Pastor E has been using a file to help me file the rough edges. So has my buddy Mark Fagan and my other younger buddy, borderline millennial Khalil Owens. They all helped me file the rough edges. However, I've also taught them a couple of little things about the racism and about the hardship that we encounter still as black people on jobs. You millennials are living in a world of fantasy because you work in an office environment. You're not exposed to the same type of rough environment that we have. And you're more concerned about gay rights than you are about black rights. I hear Jay-Z saying that it was so hurtful that President Trump was saying that many of those people coming as immigrants come from African countries, they come from shitty countries. And that's an allegation. But if he did say so, he is not 100% incorrect. I've traveled to many of those countries and I've seen exactly how the leadership, the corrupt leaders in those countries are completely plundering those countries and destroying them. And the same thing has been articulated by the president of Uganda, Museveni, and the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, that was in Overland Park, Kansas here, who has tried to model his country and make it look like Kansas, after actually being the cleanest country in Africa. The realities of it is, we don't like to hear the truth. Jay-Z himself should not be pointing the fingers at Donald Trump. Isn't he the same Jay-Z that sings about a nigger in Paris and uses a nigger word this and that? And then he's getting upset, allegedly, if Donald Trump stated that they came from shitty countries. It's very easy to beat on Donald Trump. Everybody else beats on him. However, one thing you can't fail to ignore is that he has created enough jobs, and we have the lowest unemployment in the black community that we've had since over 50 years ago. So try to figure that one out. So we have to be fair equally as being critical about people. And when you guys start jumping on me, realize one thing. At least I admit I'm rough around the edges, and I understand what it's all about, but blame your parents that they never had the guts to tell you what the real story. I told my kids that. I'm not scared to articulate my positions. So be fair and be honest.